welcome to the NHR Racing F1 RST Season 3 Round 6 Purple Lobby, this week at the Japanese circuit of Autopolis. Firstly, at midnight you can see myself and others here on the NHR Racing YouTube channel for Seasons 1 to 3 in the traditional red and blue lobbies. But right here and now it's my pleasure to introduce my co-host for the intro, Sarah Hawkey.
Hello everybody, pleasure to be here, and looking forward to getting into the race.
Absolutely, likewise. So, as previously mentioned, we usually have a red and blue lobby. Unfortunately, a lot of our drivers are on holiday the week of this race, so we've brought the whole family together for one big lobby and the purple lobby. Hopefully you see what we did there. But for the rest of the information on the calendar, we have a 10 race championship, again usually in the red and blue lobbies. Tonight in a big super purple lobby. We normally have about 30 drivers in this season, and you can see each and every one of them across the season. But the basic event format for the race will be a sprint race of about 15 minutes give or take, followed by a qualifying session for the feature race. But Sarah, can we have a bit more information on the layout of the purple lobby this week, please?
Of course you can. So, obviously with the purple lobby, the settings are kind of like the blue lobby, so I'm sure the red lobby drivers will enjoy a little bit of traction control. You know, if we get some wet weather, it will definitely help. But obviously with the points, we go to the red lobby points, which Midnight will talk about a little bit later on. But for the sprint race, which is up first, it's a reverse average point scored grid. So it's going to really benefit, you know, the drivers if they can get out of a pole position and try and hold the faster drivers behind them for as long as possible. But around Autopolis, it's going to be 9 laps and it's going to be 70% of fuel for the sprint race. It's going to be a rolling start with 4 times tyre wear and 3 times fuel. And it's an open tyre option, so the drivers can pick the best tyre that they think is going to get them to the end of the race. And after the sprint race, we go straight into the qualifying for the feature race. And the drivers got 10 minutes to set their fastest lap time with 1 times tyre wear and 3 times fuel, with fuel set out 50% to start off with. And obviously, don't forget the tyre you qualified on is what you need to start on for the feature race start, unless obviously we get any sort of wet weather. But going into the feature race tonight at Autopolis, it's going to be 36 laps long, and it's going to be quite a difficult race for the drivers. It's going to be a grid start, and like I said earlier, there might be some weather conditions, there might not. Obviously, it is at Japan, so we could be graced with a little bit of wet weather, but we shall see. But I'm going to hand you back over to Midnight, who will explain a little bit more about the points for this evening.
Spot on. Thank you very much for the information, Sarah. So, to the point. So, we're running red lobby points tonight, so the blue lobby drivers are going to be absolutely rubbing their hands together with this one. But let's start with the top. Sprint race, we have 22 points for a win, 20 for second, and 18 for third. Then they will go down in 1 or 2 points per position, all the way down to 16 for 1 point. And in the feature race, we have a lot of points on offer. So you're going to be wanting to get to the end of the race and collect them. So 45 points for win, 40 for second, and 35 for third. And again, in descending points, all the way down to 16 for 3 points. Now, there's a couple of extra bonus points on offer. You get for the fastest lap in the sprint race, you get a point, and for the fastest lap in the feature race, you get 2 points. And also for qualifying, there's a couple of extra points on offer for the top 3. 3 for first, 2 for second, and 1 for third. So with that in mind, Sarah, I think we should go and have a quick look at the track and then check out what the drivers are lined up to do for the sprint race.
Yeah, I agree. Now onto the track facts before we get into the sprint race. Tonight, as you can see, we are at Autopolis. A difficult track to master, I will say. The track itself is a real-life track which was opened in 1990 and it's over 4.5 kilometres or 2.9 miles with approximately 19 corners. The circuit is located in an upland area of the island, which means the air is thin with low atmospheric pressure. It has an elevation change of over 50 metres, with the first section generally downhill and the latter part of the course then runs uphill. The start-finish straight is located at an altitude of 182 metres, which I was interested to find out. But the circuit was designed by the project leader of the Honda F1 team during the 1960s. A little fact for you there. But in 2019, Autopolis was added into GT Sport, and like I said earlier, for me it's always been a tricky track to get right. The first corner is crucial to get right, as if taken too fast or kind of too wide because of the main straight, or if you put your wheels placed incorrectly, there is no barrier to catch you on this track. You're straight into the sand where drivers will lose a lot of time trying to get out of. But I believe around here, pit stops, fuel wear and tyre wear being quite high, consistency will be massively rewarded here tonight. But what do you think about the track, Midnight?
I think it's one of those really, really tricky tracks, without sounding a bit too general about it. But we found out in Season 1 it can throw up some interesting conditions with the weather. I mean, it can come out of absolutely nowhere. But more than anything, the tyre degradation around here, once your tyres start to go, you start sliding, and it's just a snowball effect. And not to mention, and just to throw in an extra twist, we've got the very, very tricky pit lane entrance, which can catch some drivers out of all skills, levels and experiences. But all in all, I think the track itself is one a lot of drivers don't genuinely enjoy, but once you get the rhythm of it, I think it can be a lot of fun. What do you think about it, Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, it's quite a difficult track with the kind of the twisty turns, and you've got to make sure that your exit speeds are appropriate for the corner you're going around, especially kind of that long hairpin that goes down into the downhill section. If you don't get that right, it kind of sets you up for that third and final sector a bit kind of iffy. But yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult track for kind of a lot of drivers to get used to, because it's not a track that we go to very often. So some may enjoy, some may not, but I think this sort of track, it really does test your kind of skill and your patience as well. So I'm interested to see how all the drivers get on.
Yeah, exactly that, and I do recommend anyone who has not seen our video for Season 1, go out and check that one out on our YouTube, because there's a battle. I'm not going to give you much of the way as spoilers, but there's a battle right at the end for some of the top positions, and it's always a good rewatch.
Yeah, definitely a highlight of Season 1.
Okay, and here we are with the Round 6 Autopolis Sprint order. Obviously done in reverse average points scored order. So, Hyper taking up pole position for this one in that M6. He is a previous sprint winner, so he has potential here to sneak in a good victory. Up next we have Haslett, otherwise known as Saber Venom, in that 911. As long as he stays connected, he will have a good race. He's always super quick. Super Simon in that BMW M6, love that livery. It's his first time at Autopolis, so hopefully he can have a good race. In the little Yeetle Beetle P4, Stephen, and we hope he's going to have a good race, but again, this is a tricky track. He has experienced it before, so hopefully that little bit of knowledge will carry him through. In P5 we have our co-founder Sarah Hawkey in that McLaren 650S, and that car looks like it's going fast sat still, but hopefully it will look fast going fast as well. Good luck to Sarah on this one. And in P6 we have Lee, the Unlimited Esports team manager in that wonderful BTCC livery. In P7 we have the ever-present Koulios in that BRZ. Now, he had a bit of a tricky one at Daytona with the oval. Now, that BRZ looks like it is much better suited to this course, so good luck to Koulios on this one. In P8, we have Ripon Tatarin in that gorgeous 4GT purple livery. Another one that looks like it's going 100 miles an hour sat still, but he is going to be wanting to move forwards and hopefully pick up a good podium, maybe even a win here today. Over to yourself, Sarah, for P9.
Thank you very much. And he's back, and he's back with a bang. We have Joker in P9 with that gorgeous looking Ferrari 458, and on his return I'm sure he'd be hoping to do pretty well around a difficult track. Just behind him in P10 we have Max Velocity in that McLaren 650S. We all know how fast Max Velocity can be, so again I'm sure we'll be looking for a good result here. In P11 we have another McLaren 650S in the form of LB Racing, or Lewis. Again, starting quite far back, but we know how fast he is and how quickly he can kind of manage his way around the drivers in front of him. But in P12, just behind, back off of holiday, we have the Dark Lord, and again looking to come back with a bang, hopefully, and have a good result in the sprint race, which should set him up nicely for the feature race. In P13, we have KD the Kai in that lovely looking Corvette, and I'm sure he'll be looking for some good results. Potentially a podium might be on the cards if he can try and get out of the way of the drivers in front and kind of worm his way through. In P14, we have Pedro, one of our admin, and again, starting this far back, he's got quite a challenge on his hands, but I'm sure there's no one better to do it than Pedro. And in P15, rounding out the grid, we have Midnight ISO in that 650S McLaren, and again, like Pedro, got a big challenge on his hands starting this far back, but that's what we love about the sprint race. It sets a challenge for the faster drivers at the back to try and get to the front and kind of experience, a few defensive moves, a few attacking moves. But I don't know about you, Midnight. I'm excited to go and see how everyone gets on, and how the drivers, the red lobby drivers, obviously starting at the back, how long it takes them to get to the front.
Exactly that, and over to our commentators.
Okay, so starting us away for the first lap of the sprint race, we have Piper, followed by Saber Venom, followed by Super Simon in P3. Here we are, and we're on and underway. Heading down towards the first corner with Piper leading us. Looking down back, everyone running single file into turn one. See a slight look up the inside there as Lee dives up the inside as Sarah into turn one, looking to make some progress here in the first lap of this race. As we have a battle for third, Stephen goes up the inside of Super Simon. Maybe a little bit of contact there, a little bit of smoke being kicked up between the two drivers as Lee goes around the outside of Stephen to take E3 and a podium position. As further back down the pack, we see Ripnotarian in P6, Koulios in 7, Joker, LB Lewis, and Keith Kai all going side by side, trying Jocelyn for position. As Joker looks to go around the outside of Koulios, go around that sweep Nakanda. Maybe a little bit of contact there again between two drivers. Yeah, a little bit of rubbing and racing, as the saying goes. Looking towards the back at the front of the pack with Piper still defending from Saber Venom as they run down the hill and towards the final sector. A little bit of a gap forming between the top 3 and 4th position.
Yeah, it looks like as well, just further back in the pack, a bit of chaos. Looks like Dark Lord and Koulios getting caught up in incidents there. Koulios spinning around on the hairpin and Dark Lord earlier in the lap. But yeah, looks like there is a bit of a gap forming between them top 3 and, of course, your man in 4th, Stephen, as actually now Stephen and Rippin' Deterran going side by side. Rippin' Deterran doing very well in the start here. We saw him make an overtake on Sarah and now up into P4 past Stephen. A very good move into quite a tricky section of the track. Them S's are a bit difficult, so fair play to him on that move. But now as we go down the straight, there's a good long straight, good chance to get some slipstream, but this turn 1 is quite unforgiving. It's a right angle corner, so it's a bit difficult to go side by side through there. Usually the guy on the outside will get the better exit. But yeah, interesting first lap, few incidents, but people trying to settle in now.
Yeah, as PC, an interesting sector. It looks like Stephen is defending from Kid Kai. Stephen goes wide and off the track and possibly hitting the wall there. Obviously not the greatest start to his race as he drops all the way down to the back of the pack. As we see Darkwood going around the outside of him, dropping Stephen right down to the P12. Looking back towards the front of the pack, it seems like Piper is pulling away ever so slightly at the front there to Saber Venom with Lee in 3rd place. Hayden Kai has made a very good start in the first few laps, Mac, moving up all the way up into position 5.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen Kai, he's been very strong in these sprint races before. We saw it at Monza, and we've seen it on many other occasions as well. So he's definitely getting through the pack pretty quickly and is now chasing down Rippin' Deterran. It's going to be the Ford GT versus the Corvette. So it's going to be interesting. Battle of the American cars here. But up at the front, we see someone's gone off. Piper's gone off in the BMW. Very unfortunately, he's going to drop down to P5 now and slide behind Kai. Potentially lose another position to Pedro now as well. As I believe it's Max Velocity approaching now as well in the background. But yeah, it looks like Saber Venom making up a position there into second. And now Lee will lead this race. But Rippin' the Terran is going to have to fend off from Kai as they head down the straight. As there's going to be a bit of slipstream. Will Kai be able to make a daring move down the inside, or is he going to hold off for the next set of corners? We'll see. Closing up to the back there into turn one, but no move coming as of right now. But oh, it looks like Rippin' the Terran not getting the best of exits, and it looks like Kai's going to be approaching around the outside now as they head into the right-hander. Kai on the outside, he's going to go a bit wide onto that curb, sacrificing that line as he's on the inside now for this like double apex left-hander. But Rippin' the Terran has that inside line for the hairpin. Great battle between the two drivers here, and it looks like Rippin' the Terran going to come out on top. Brilliant stuff as they settle in now.
Absolute edge of the seat stuff. Is Kai going to possibly look at lining up a move up into the hairpin, looking for that second brake forward on the right there to spot his braking point? Maybe just a little bit too far back, but he's taking a tight line around the hairpin and trying to straighten up the exit and plunge down the hill. As we see at the front, Saber Venom and Lee almost going side by side. Lee getting very aggressive on the defense, as we've seen from him multiple times this season. Very aggressive driver. It was like Saber Venom is sat all over the back of him through this technical final sector, and possibly looking to line up an attack on the pitch straight.
Yeah, Saber Venom's going to slot into that slipstream now as they just head through this very twisty section. Quite hard to overtake around here, of course. I mean, as I said, there's that big straight, but a lot of the corners, they're a bit awkward. You've got these like right angle corners. You've got very twisty sections that definitely break up the flow for the drivers. So you definitely have to have a good pace advantage over another driver to get a move done. But it does mean that we'll see some inventive overtakes around this track and some really good battles as people compromise lines for different corners. But up at the front, it is, as you mentioned, Lee in first, Saber Venom second, Rippin' the Terran third, and Kai in fourth. But that's going to change here soon, as it looks like Saber Venom's eyeing up a move down the inside into the right-hander. Nothing going to come of it. Bit of contact there, as that's going to let Rippin' the Terran catch up. Kai looking to the inside, not going to be able to get any move done. But it's heating up here as Saber Venom's dropped back a small bit. And now Rippin' the Terran is still defending from Kai. There's a big train here, spanning from first to sixth. Oh, Rippin' the Terran spins round. Oh no! Such a good performance from Rippin' the Terran, just fighting off Kai and having a spin. So unfortunate for the 4GT driver. But now that leaves Kai up in the third position, and he's going to be hunting down this top two. But that, as I mentioned, first to fifth, it's quite a big train, and there's no signs of it breaking up, as Kai actually, with a 0.5 second penalty, is going to give Pedro a bit of a look at the podium position.
Yeah, absolutely. Going through this sector, this final sector, should I say, it really looks like anybody could possibly win this race. Obviously, we're just about halfway through it at this point, but it looks like the top 7 is separated by less than 5 seconds. Especially with the two faster drivers that you usually see towards the front of the pack, with Kai and Dark Lord in the back of this pack now. It'd be interesting to see if have a surprise result here. Is currently leads the way with Saber Venom in P2, Kai with that half-second penalty in P3, with Pedro. Again, another aggressive drive from this driver. Pedro up in fourth, obviously starting a little bit down towards the rear of the pack. As we see Max Velocity going absolutely sending one up the inside. A little bit archy-bargy, a little bit ambitious. It looks like he'd come out worse on that move, Mac.
Oh, very unfortunate. We know Max Velocity is a brilliant driver, but just not working out that time for him. As we see now up at the front, it's spicing up. Kai is looking for a move on Lee. The end may be coming here soon for Lee's lead, but we'll have to see, because Kai does have that penalty, as we know. The penalty of not being served on that last lap, so must have gotten it after the penalty line, but he will have to serve it here eventually at some point. So it's now, there's a bit of a gap between Kai and Saber Venom there, but that's going to change now as Kai goes to serve this penalty, heading out of the hairpin, which is where the slowdown zone is.
Okay, getting a little bit too early of the exit of that hairpin. Obviously now serving that penalty is going to put him under pressure ever so slightly from Saber Venom coming into the final sector. But this is a section that you don't really see overtakes. It is a little bit too twisty, too technical. Everybody usually tends to go single file through unless you're someone like Katie the Kai who's trying to look everywhere. Well, that Porsche is not to try and make this move. Basically pushing Lee through this final section, like let me pass, let me get in that clean air at the front of this pack. Surely it's only a matter of time before Katie Kai makes this move as he takes a slightly wider line than Lee to try and get a much better exit onto the pit straight. Katie Kai all tucked up behind that Porsche, he pulls towards the outside. That V8 power of the Corvette be able to. Oh, what's happening at the back there, Mac?
There's a big crash in the back. Saber Venom getting loose off the final corner exit and collects Joker and I believe a few other drivers. Sorry for butting in there, but yeah, big crash in the back. That's messed up a few of the positions now as Joker and Saber Venom falling behind, and Saber Venom beats in the gravel there off of the first turn. It's all gone downhill for the third and fourth place driver, but now, as we mentioned, that Kai has gotten past Lee.
It looked like in the first corner that it may be a little bit of contact between Max Velocity and Saber Venom, which left Saber Venom in the gravel. But it looks like Katie Kai's also made that move past Lee as he was pushing that Porsche quite a lot for that final sector. As we all see Pedro going round the outside of Lee, heading up towards the hairpin. In the space of one lap, Lee's lost 2 positions, Mac.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Pedro, of course, we know, very fast driver. He's a bit of a silent killer sometimes. He kind of does his own thing, and all of a sudden he's there. He's there in second position. And could he challenge for the lead even? He looks really strong in that Mercedes. We'll have to see if he can keep up with Kai heading to these final 3 laps. But yeah, it's looking really interesting. And unfortunate that Lee dropped those positions, but that's just sometimes how it goes. We know that this track is quite high tyre wear, and the Porsche isn't the best on those tyres. You can see a lot more tyre wear on the Porsche than some of the other drivers that are in the McLaren and even the Ferrari, for example. So maybe just struggling with a bit of the tyre wear as well. But interesting as we come to these last 3 laps, Kirk.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie Kai is making that move into turn 1 that we couldn't quite cover because all the drivers are going to kick off on the back of the pack. Well, it seems like they're both pulled at quite a healthy margin now to Lee. Lee now in a little race of his own, maybe to secure that final podium position. Although that one may be under a little bit of threat now as one of the fastest drivers in our entire field. The Dark Lord is now hunting him down for 3rd place. Max Velocity, ignoring all the slight mishaps he's had this race, is up in P5, which should still be a very, very good position for him. Midnight in P6, a little bit quiet race from him, but it's certainly taking advantage of all the drama, with Koulios in 7th, Joker in 8th, ripping the tearing, recovering from that slight spin he had up in P9, with Saber Venom just the last few drivers just trundling around at the back with Saber Venom 10th, LB Lewis 11th, Stephen in 12th, Prim 13th, Sarah in 14th, and Simon running the back of the pack in 15th. And it certainly looks at the moment that the Dark Lord is catching Lee up by quite a rate of knots. I think on board with him, I'm seeing him. It seems like quite it's closing in quite a rate of knots per corner, Mac.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Dark Lord has enough time to spring a move on Lee, especially through the twisty sections of this track. But I just want to bring something to your attention in the fact that Kai is definitely losing a bit of time to Pedro. We know the AMG has always been strong around tracks like this, these twisty section tracks where straight line speed isn't the priority, where there's corners that chain together. And of course, speaking from personal experience, in the Mercedes here last season, that was the car that won the sprint race. So we'll have to see if Pedro can make the most of this now. as he is definitely closing up to Kai in the twisty sections. The Corvette is a very heavy car. It doesn't like any corners whatsoever. It's purely straight line speed. You can see here even catching in the left-hander and into the hairpin. But now it looks like Dark Lord is slowly going to overtake Lee, and he does, not slowly, but he definitely does get past Lee there before the hairpin even comes up. Great move through the twisty sections. Super Simon spun in the barrier there. But yeah, it looks like Dark Lord has closed up eventually and has gotten past Lee, so that drops Lee out of the podium position, unfortunately. So will Dark Lord, I mean, there's a pretty big gap between Dark Lord and the front two, so I'd say Dark Lord might just be content in staying P3 and finishing that race, considering the instant he had on the first lap. But further back, we can see Joker looking up the inside on Koulias, but nothing coming of it. So as we enter the closing stages, you gotta wonder, is Pedro going to be able to catch up to Kai by the end of this race?
It's certainly one to look at heading on to the final lap. You know, you're only going to have, really, on this track, we've got one true overtaking, or well, two true overtaking opportunities, whether it be into turn 1 or into turn 2. Otherwise, it's very technical. Or maybe do you risk a dive up at the hairpin halfway around the lap, or do you just try and make the move up early, Mac?
Well, we do know that with these this new set of physics that came to the game, it's a lot harder under the brakes, especially. As we see, Max Velocity and Lee having an incident here now. Off the final corner, looks like Max Velocity on the grass and hitting the barrier potentially. So that's going to drop Max Velocity further down the order. It's very unfortunate. He started to recover that race as Midnight now getting past Lee, heading into the first corner. So an incident there. Not sure what the stewards are going to think about that. But yeah, as you mentioned, risking a late move, it all comes down to the situation. You just have to see, do you feel confident on the brakes? Do you feel you can make this corner and not take out your opponent? Now, they do have a big gap, so even if there was an incident, I'm sure they'd be able to recover it in time. But yeah, the time is ticking for Pedro. Is he going to be able to make a move, especially into this very tricky section? Kai has went a bit wide on the hairpin, though. That's going to give Pedro a sniff at the win. They're going to be bumper to bumper in a second if Pedro gets any closer. So this is definitely going to be a chance for Pedro, but Pedro gets onto the grass slightly, and that's going to lose him a bit of time. But we know Kai is is not doing very well into this kind of twisty section. Just that Corvette isn't able to grip up. You can see Pedro catching the time, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get it. It's very difficult to overtake in these final 3 corners. You have to get the run of your life to get a chance to overtake the guy in front of you. Can Pedro do it though? I'm not sure if he can. The finish line is pretty early on the straight, and it looks like he won't, unfortunately. Kai is going to cross the line in first with Pedro in second. Dark Lord's off on the final corner. I'm not sure what that's about. Is Midnight going to be able to get there? Midnight gives him a bump going out of the final corner, but it looks like Dark Lord is going to give position back. Great sportsmanship there. Obviously, Dark Lord might have felt that he rejoined in front of Midnight and caused him to hit him. And Joker coming in 5th, Lee in 6th, and Ribbon to Terran in 7th. Wow, that's interesting. And Max in 8th.
Well, for that drama between the two drivers, Lee and Max Velocity, Max Velocity almost caught him up in the space of 1 lap. So I'm not sure fully what's happened to Lee during this race. Obviously, with 2 laps to go, he was up in 4th position to finish P7th. He must have had a bit of a mare final 2 laps. But very impressive drive from all of our top 4. We saw Midnight only a few laps ago was down in a P9 on the podium. He must have worked some of that Midnight magic, if you know what I mean, Mac.
Yeah, Midnight. He's been on form these last few races, of course. Getting a P2 in the red lobby around Barcelona in the McLaren. McLaren's been looking very strong this season, so I have to say, Midnight's putting the work in. He's doing well, and yeah, working that Midnight magic, as you said.
I also want to say congratulations to KDK. Very good race win. Pedro, very unfortunate to take P2, but I'm certain that he's not going to be too down on himself about P2. And then Dark Lord taking fourth as well. A very good drive from the back of the pack, managing to cut through the pack, avoid all the drama, and take home a nice haul of points, wouldn't you say, Mac?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of drivers that capitalised this race, and a lot that unfortunately just couldn't capitalise and had a few issues. So, you know, there's some people that'll take home some very positive, you know, results from the race, but then there's obviously those who weren't that lucky, unfortunately, and had them incidents that weren't entirely their fault. But it definitely sets a precedent as we go into the feature race on who might be on form. So I'm excited to see this feature race anyways, and I'm sure you are as well, Kirk.
Yeah, bring on the action and let's see what it brings.
Qualifying done and dusted, and we've got the Dark Lord in pole position. It's good to see Louis back and in pole position with a very fast lap time indeed, with a 1:45.565, so very, very fast indeed. He did sit on the soft compound tyre, but he's put himself over half a second clear of KD Dekai in second place. It just goes to show that soft in qualifying really does work out sometimes. But again, a really fast lap time by KD Dekai in P2 with a 1:46.105. So like I said, just over half a second for the Dark Lord, but qualifies on the medium. So a really good qualifying from KD Dekai. In P3, we then have our very own Pedro, also qualifying on the medium tyres. Just behind him, we have the other co-owner of Nighthawk, Midnight ISO, also, well, actually, Midnight also going for the soft compound of tyre, which is interesting to see, setting himself up nicely for the start of the feature race, I'm sure. Just behind him, and quite surprisingly, qualifying quite high up, we have Kulios in that BRZ, and hopefully the BRZ will be a little bit kinder to Kulios this week. As we know, in Daytona it was a little bit difficult. And in P6 we then have Max Velocity qualifying on the medium compound of tyre, so setting himself quite nicely in the mid-pack for the feature race. Let's see if he can make up a few positions. I'm going to hand over to Midnight, who will go through the rest of the grid.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, and on to P7, we have Rip and Deterrent in that 4GT. Obviously, it's a bit of a tricky track for a 4GT. It's a big, heavy car here at Autopolis, but he's starting on the medium tyre. He's obviously thinking long game, so good luck to Rip and Deterrent on that one. In P8, we have Hassler, otherwise known as Saber Venom. As we have said a few times, he's had connectivity issues for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, he can have a nice, stable session and a good result here today at Autopolis. Up next in P9 we have LBR Lewis in that McLaren 650S on the medium tyres as well. 2.3 down on pole, but that won't matter too much when he's going longer. Joker in P10 also taking a different mind on the strategy, going for the hard tyres to begin with. So could we be seeing a really interesting strategy here today? In P11, one of our co-owners, Sarah Hawkey in the remaining 650S on the soft tyres, definitely looking for a fast start here today. P12, the little Yeeter Beetle of Stephen. Now, it is a tricky car on a tricky track, but can he make the best of it here today? In P13, Super Simon. It's first time here at Autopolis. Might be a bit of a baptism of fire, but he's definitely going to be looking to gain more experience and move up the grid.
Yeah, that's everyone on the grid, and thank you very much, Midnight. Let's go see how everyone got on. Right, so getting ready to set off. Got 5 red lights. Oh, it looks like Max Velocity has had a full start. Oh, a little bit of a bump from behind from the drivers. That didn't look like the cleanest getaway for the back half of the grid. But talking about the top half, we have the top 5 getting away nice and cleanly. Kind of taking it easy for that first corner. We all know around Autopolis that first corner is one you definitely want to get right on lap 1, because if not, you're in the sand and you're building a sandcastle. But in the lead, we've currently got KD Dekai, followed by Louis, and we've got an off at the back. I believe that was Kulios. Yeah, unfortunately Kulios, spinning round again. Unfortunate for Kulios, but heading up back to the top of the grid. The top four are quite close to each other at the minute, with Midnight, Pedro, Louis and KD Kai. Anything happening round at the back, Midnight?
We've got a couple of drivers that are recovering. We see Koulios, who went off. We had a little bit of an incident on the start line. I think Saber Venom caught the brunt of that with Max Velocity's false start, but it looks like everyone has gotten away with no or minimal damage. Let's just see a little move into the hairpin where Max Velocity tags the back of Terran, but they carry on. But it looks like everyone didn't pick up any major damage and are off again, hopefully with less incidents for the race to come. It's a long race, this one, 36 laps.
Yeah, it definitely is, and we've currently got a little bit of a battle for the lead. We saw Louis just go past KD Kai there. A very brave move around the twisty, kind of tight bit of the Autopolis track. You never quite know, the limits around here, if you can push it, because there's no barriers to catch you. It's just grass and sand around here. So Louis went for a very brave move, which puts him back into P1 with KD Kai in P2. But yeah, going back to what you said, it looked like quite a few drivers got caught up in that full start by Max Velocity. But like you say, they're hoping, they didn't. I'm hoping none of them got too much damage and it affected their kind of start too much, as it looks like everyone now is kind of trying to settle into the race. But yeah, Autopolis is one of those tracks that is, I find personally, very difficult to get right.
Yeah,
as we see Louis, taking a lot of grass action there. Sorry to interrupt you there.
That's all good. I was just going to say exact same. It is a track that's quite difficult for a lot of drivers, and with the new physics that we've got, as we can see, the Dark Lord coming sideways out of the hairpin there, it's providing very tricky for all the drivers, and it looks like no one pitted at the end of that lap. So at least we've all got all drivers still in the race and moving forwards.
Yeah, and that's what we like to see, of course. Yeah, it looks like Pedro is looking to challenge the top two, as they've kind of trying to swap places, KD Kai and Louis, which is bringing Pedro back into the mix of this podium position fight at the minute, with Midnight not being too far behind. And sorry to talk about you, Midnight, but you're kind of a silent assassin. At this point, I think you'd be kind of looking to try and strike at any point if they were to kind of make even a minimal mistake. But just behind, obviously, we've got Joker. A little bit of a gap to Midnight, but luckily Joker didn't get involved too much kind of in that grid start problem. But just behind, we've got LB Lewis as well. So just quite a strong top six we've got currently, and obviously everyone behind again is trying to settle into the race. 3 laps in, but obviously in P1 we've still got Louis. With KD Kai, who's had some pretty strong races recently. Obviously, before this, we were at Daytona, and he had some quite good results in that gas-guzzling Corvette. But will the Corvette, play to his favour or not round here?
Well, that is the question, and one thing that's making Kai look extremely strong is he's on the back of Louis in that M6, but Kai is on the medium tyres with Louis on the soft tyres, and looks like that M6 is just chewing through the front. Again, it is worth saying that it is the first race on these new physics, and some drivers are adapting to them a lot quicker than others, but more than anything, it's going to be dividends towards the end just to keep those tyres intact. And I've got to say, Kai and Pedro, both looking extremely strong out the top 4, both of them on those medium tyres.
Yeah, and quite an interesting starting tyre from the Dark Lord, obviously picking the softs. It's going to be fast to start off with, but he's going to mean that he's going to have to pit before the likes of KD Kai and Pedro. But obviously we saw that quite astonishing qualifying time by the Dark Lord, so hence why he was going for that pole position and there was no kind of stopping him. But at the moment, just obviously looking on board with the Dark Lord, it does look like that BMW is very drifty around some of these corners, so I think it's going to be quite a difficult race for Dark Lord to kind of hold off KD Kai and Pedro, so I'm interested to see what happens there. But again, we've still got Midnight just behind Pedro, and yeah, just looking for slightly further back, we've got obviously Koulios, after that slight mistake at the start, managing to get back into P10 and kind of trying to create his own destiny during the feature race. that interested to see. The Subaru looks a little bit stronger here than what it did around Daytona, so I'm sure Koulios will be very happy about that.
Yeah, completely agree. It was all at sea at Daytona, which is weird because it's a landlocked little place. But at very least, yeah, Koulios making the most of the car in the setup that he's got now. However, with that spin, well, off the track moment early on, it has hampered it, but he'll be looking to come back through the back later on. I am keeping an eye, particularly on the top two, as it looks like Kai's tyres are now reaching a point where the Dark Lord is going to be fearing him. Other than that, we've got Joker in P5 on the hard tyre in that 458, closely followed by LBR Lewis in that McLaren 650S. So there's a little few battles going on through the grid there, Sarah.
Yeah, and this obviously makes our job a lot harder to kind of keep on top of all these battles. But yeah, I've got to say, you know, 4 laps in, the driver's doing a remarkable job so far. And going back to what you just said, quite interesting choice for Joker to go on those hard tyres. So hopefully, you know, I think his strategy is go long into the race, try and, you know, offset his strategy a little bit to the cars around him, which, you know, hopefully towards the end of the race will kind of play a little bit more into his favour. We see LB Lewis going slightly wide onto the grass, which does lose him a little bit of time to Joker. Going back to Joker, obviously this first stint is probably going to be one of the hardest stints for Joker to kind of keep consistent and keep those kind of hard tyres alive, because even with the new physics, those hard tyres, they're kind of like Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. So I'm interested to see how Joker gets on in this first stint.
I will say with that 458, it doesn't seem to be affected as much as some other cars, as Louis in the Dark Lord in the P1 dipped some tyres on the grass. It looks like he's going to be under threat from Kai, but I'll finish that sentence that the 458 doesn't seem to be affected as badly as some other cars. So the hard tyre might well be a very interesting strategy, but it looks like out front that the Dark Lord is now really suffering with that tyre wear. As you can see, he's down to close to the canvas, so he's got to be in this lap after only 5 laps. But he's now seemingly holding up Kai in P2, Pedro in P3, who are now on the back of him.
Yeah, it just goes to show, you know, obviously the softs are very fast for lap times, but it means you're going to have to pit just that a lot sooner than the cars around him. So hopefully, you know, Louis aiming for an aggressive strategy to put him back into kind of that pole position. But it's going to be tough for him to hold back KD the car shortly, as we see a little bit of a collision between Max Velocity and Ripon Deterrin. Going to look like Max Velocity was carrying a lot more speed there and maybe broke just that a little bit too late. But we've got a nice little battle between LB Lewis, Ripon Deterrin and Max Velocity. And I'm sure, you know, Max Velocity will be eager to try and make up as many places as he can after that full start. Which I always forget how much, you know, that full start really does affect you. You know, you see the competitors around you driving off and you're having to wait just that a little bit longer to get going, but it's good to see him back in a little bit of a battle here.
Yeah, quite right. And Louis' front tyre, the Dark Lord, has just gone as he goes into the pits as well. The end of lap 5, that is astonishingly early. But now the top 3 all together, Sarah.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, the KD, the Kai, Pedro and Midnight are very happy about that, as it's brought them all closer to each other. Obviously, like I said, Midnight, a little bit of a silent assassin. He's been waiting for his chance to get onto that podium, and potentially it could be his chance, you know, on the slightly different tyre to Louis, who obviously unfortunately has had to pit. Means that the likes of KD, the Kai, Midnight, Pedro, they can go that a little bit longer, try and you know, create that gap to Louis and make it harder for the Dark Lord to get back into first position.
Yeah, but stopping so early it's really difficult to recover from there. As you see, the tyre wear, particularly on even the Corvette, which is not known having great tyre wear, is significantly better. But that can be down to driving style, it can be down to control method, wheel versus controller, and again the tyres and the car as well. So a lot of factors at play here, Sarah. But again, I'm just keeping an eye on Joker, who's keeping pace with the top 3 despite being on in some cases 2-step harder tyres. So Joker looking like very much a dark horse at the moment, but closely followed by LBR Lewis and Max Lossi, who has gotten past Ripon Deterrin somewhere.
Yes, and we see Pedro eyeing up a little bit of a move on KD the Kai that unfortunately has to stay behind him just for that little bit longer. But yeah, I've got to say, a very impressive stint so far for Joker. You can just about see the top three in front of him, and I think that is his aim. He wants to try and get as close as he can to this top three and kind of stay with them for that little bit longer. But yeah, going back to what you said, obviously around here, the time you lose in the pits and the time you come out in the traffic, it is going to be quite kind of detrimental to the Dark Lord. But we all know how good Louis is, at defending and obviously overtaking. So I'm sure shortly we're going to see some quite aggressive moves from the Dark Lord to try and get himself back up into that podium spot. But it looks like the gap between the top three has opened up a little bit.
Has indeed. Unfortunately, I got some bad news. We have had a retirement from Stephen, and we see the Dark Lord is back in again. Could this be a retirement from the Dark Lord as well?
Potentially, either some damage or not. I don't know. Very unusual, obviously, to see him pit one lap before and then come back in. So potentially an issue there. But obviously, it was sad to see him back into the pits. Obviously, that will lose him quite a lot of time.
I think it's a retirement, Sarah. That's
it does
unfortunate.
Look like it, unfortunately.
We're losing one of our front runners. He's still in the pits. They're not changing tyres or adding fuel.
A very aggressive move by Max Velocity there, who does kind of cut off LB Lewis in a way. Obviously, LB Lewis going for that wider line, Max Velocity going for the shorter line in the apex line, does catch him out, and it looks like a little bit of a collision between the two again. Obviously, the two McLaren drivers getting very, very close for comfort, kind of like the race at the weekend. But yeah, Max Velocity makes a move on LB Lewis, but I'm sure LB Lewis will be thinking, it could have been done a little bit cleaner. But the two McLaren drivers fighting it out, and Rippin Terran looks like he's eyeing up a move on both of them now, as he's managed to get himself back up to the likes of LB Lewis and Max Velocity.
Quite right, we're seeing a lot of McLarens dicing recently, particularly in the F1 and in this series, so it seems to be a bit of a constant thing. You see McLaren drivers going at it together, but like you said, Rippin Terran sitting there behind the pair, not bothering to go for the slipstream, just keeping his line nice and straight, making life easy on himself. But yeah, Rippin Terran potentially eyeing up a place and playing the longer game, looking at 6th and 5th like he wants them.
Yeah, I've got to say, Rippin Terran's form recently has been spot on. He qualifies well, he races well. His race pace has been phenomenal. He's kind of in or around the podium, which is always quite impressive in that 4GT.
Just to bring the talk back to the front, I'm keeping an eye on it. But Kai, at the moment, he's making a bit of a gap to Pedro. But Pedro has, I'm not going to say significantly more fuel, but a sizable amount more fuel than Kai in front of him. So definitely looking like a challenge for the victory here today. But looking, again, a little bit, just a couple of corners behind Rippin Terran now on the back of LBR Lewis. It is also just worth saying that Max and Lewis are very, they often end up on the same bit of track for good reason. It's a very, I'm going to say, equal in terms of performance. So it's always interesting when we get these two close.
Oh, 100%. Like I said a couple of laps ago now. Obviously, I think LB Lewis knew that the move was going to be made by Max Velocity, but I think it did catch him out a little bit by surprise. But I'm eager to see these two battling it out. But yeah, no, I think, like you say, Rippin Terran is just kind of looking at these two McLarens in front of him and kind of waiting his time. But further back, we've got Koulios and Haslett together at the minute. Obviously, Koulios making some moves up after his slight mistake on lap 1, and I'm sure he'll be eager to try and get in that slipstream of Haslett and kind of bring himself back up positions. As we see Midnight coming into the pits and changing tyres. He goes on the soft set of tyres, so quite an aggressive kind of pit stop strategy from Midnight there, going on the softer tyres, trying to bring himself closer to that podium again. And obviously with the soft tyres, I'm sure we're going to see some really fast lap times set by Midnight, so eager to see how he does. But yeah, obviously pitting 9 laps in, I'd imagine Midnight's probably going for a very aggressive strategy here, so I'm eager to see how his race unfolds.
Well, sometimes you've just got to try that aggressive strategy. If you spot a pit lane is shorter in terms of in and out pit length, then sometimes you've got to give it a go, particularly when the tyre deg is high around here. We'll see what other drivers try a similar strategy or something completely different.
Yeah, going back to Koulios and Haslett, Koulios has managed to close that gap a little bit. It looks like he's going for the move. Haslett made a slight mistake there on the apex, but it brings Koulios back up quite close to the back of that 911, but not close enough to make a move done. Obviously, Haslett will be looking behind him and see how close Koulios is. As he goes to the inside, Koulios makes the move done, and he gets it done and dusted on Haslett. Unfortunately, it looked like Haslett dipped a few wheels on the grass there, which did lose him quite a lot of speed, but Koulios making the move stick and looking like he's on great form now after that slight mistake at the start.
Yeah, his consistency is definitely improving race to race. Unfortunately, as you said, with Koulios, that lap 1 incident, I don't know if he was forced off or whatnot, but he's recovering nicely right now. And you see Haslett at the moment, his front left is wearing down to the canvas, and he's going to be coming under attack again very shortly.
Yes, we see obviously Midnight just coming into the pits, and he's already on the back of Haslett, so I'm sure Midnight would be eager to make some moves stick on Haslett coming up in the next couple of corners or so. Like I say, Haslett struggling, or looks like he's struggling with a little bit of tyre wear here, so I'm sure Midnight would be eager to try and get that move done. As Midnight moves to the inside into the apex, does he get the move done? Not quite. Side by side of Haslett, battling it through the twisty, turny section of the track. Midnight still on that inside line. Haslett, fighting and to the bitter end, but it looks like Midnight gets in front and has to tuck in behind that McLaren, and Midnight's on his way to go and catch Koulios. But yeah, really good battle between Haslett and Midnight there. It's not an easy section of the track to overtake, so quite impressive, side by side through some of those corners.
Somewhere on track we have had Ripon de Darren. He's gotten past LBR Lewis, so another plate's moved up for Ripon de Darren there, who's in that 4GT, which is widely regarded as not particularly suited for this track, but he's doing well, even on tyre wear and fuel, so a good bit of racecraft there from Ripon de Darren as well.
Yeah, potentially either a little bit of a mistake there for LB Lewis, or like you say, the pace of Ripon de Darren, just being able to get past that McLaren, and to be fair, an already sizable gap between the two, so that's like I said a few laps ago, Ripon de Darren has been kind of a very surprising driver this season. He's managed to have some really good performances, so I'm very happy for him in that 4GT, because like you say, it's not suited to some of the tracks that we go to, but he's always had some good performances.
Oh!
So yeah, very happy for Ripon de Darren there.
Koulios into the pit wall.
Yeah, easily done around here with that kind of tight pit entry, but yeah, very unfortunate there, which were obviously, if he comes in and repairs that, they will lose him a little bit more time, and obviously that move on Haslett is it's null and void now. He's lost all that time, but it's very easily done, and I'm sure other people will do it during the course of the race, as some of the tracks we go to, the pit entry is just that little bit wider than Autopolis.
Yeah, quite right. It's very easy to do it. At the very least, if you're going to do it, that's the place to do it, because at least you've got very minimal distance to go to your pit box to repair the damage or lose them the most minimum amount of time. But unfortunate there for him, as we see Sarah Hawkey in the pits as well. So yeah, we've got the first round of pit stops well underway for the medium drivers now. But out front, we do see Kai, who's looking after his tyres pretty well, but although he has pulled a gap to Pedro, I do think he's going to be in a lap or two sooner than Kai. I think sooner than Pedro, rather. Kai will be in first. But I do think we are going to be in a scenario where longevity towards the ends of the race, the tyres, is going to be in the favour of Pedro. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's still early.
Yeah, it goes back to that kind of the American muscle car that the Corvette is. Obviously, it burns through fuel and tyres, just that a little bit more than the Mercedes. So obviously it plays into Pedro's court a little bit more than it does Katie the Kai. But I think we all know how Katie the Kai does. He'll try and fight to the bitter end to claim that win, and he'll try his best to try and hold Pedro off for as long as he can. Yeah, Pedro, he's able to kind of look after those tyres and a little bit more fuel compared to Katie the Kai. So I think towards the end it's going to be quite quite a close race. It's too early to call at the minute.
Yeah, and we have Rip and Deterrent is in the pits as well, followed by Hazlitt, who has a significant margin of fuel. So Hazlitt being not a tyre whisperer, but a fuel whisperer. And we do see Rip and Deterrent with some front end damage from somewhere. So maybe he's clipped the pit wall on the way in. But Hazlitt with a completely dead front left tyre. So we are seeing some drivers cope with the tyre and the physics a bit differently to the other ones. And then we have the factor of the fuel. So as Saber Venom, Hazlitt gets out earlier than Rip and Deterrent, but obviously Rip and Deterrent fixing that damage has put him behind Hazlitt. So a bit of a turn up for the books on that one.
Yeah, obviously we see a move by Midnight as well on LB Lewis, going on the hairpin. You know, Midnight going for that inside line, LB Lewis letting him through, going on the outside line. A very clean pass by the two McLarens there. So yeah, LB Lewis tucking in behind Midnight, and I'm sure he'll be very thankful for a little bit of slipstream. But yeah, going back to Hazlitt and Rip and Deterrent, it obviously in the long run, repairing that damage will help Rip and Deterrent's race. But yeah, unfortunately, does lose him a little bit of time. Katie the Kai managing to not hit the wall, but that does bring and promote Pedro into P1, and it looks like he's managing the tyre and the fuel well quite well, although those front tyres do look a little bit worse for wear.
Yeah, we're going to have a significant undercut from Kai right now. He's been on fresh rubber and able to absolutely go for it. So he might even extend the margin on Pedro once Pedro has pitted. Yeah,
unfortunately we've just seen Simon into the sand, but let's Joker and Max Velocity through. And obviously going back to Simon, he's had minimal experience around Autopolis, and like we've said, you know, numerous times already 13 laps in, this is an incredibly hard track to learn, and to learn quickly with kind of these different sections. But yeah, unfortunate for Simon, but manages to get out of the way of Midnight as well, and I'm sure Midnight will be very thankful. But yeah, I think, you know, the more Simon drives around Autopolis, you know, the more experience he's gaining, but probably one of the more harder tracks on the calendar. So impressive drive from Simon so far.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, what we like to see is drivers take the initiative and particularly learn new tracks, which is what we're going to for Simon today. And it is a tricky track. There's no two bones about it. He's doing well. But I'm just going to draw your attention to up front, Joker in P2 on those hard tyres. I think he started to actually mildly close in on Pedro, because Pedro's tyres are going to be going through that phase where they're starting to drop off a cliff, as we've seen with Kai choosing to pit for new rubber already. Joker still with a good 50% worth of tyre wear on that 458, so doing very, very well. He does have Max Velocity somewhat closing in on him. However, the tyres for his McLaren are going to start to drop off soon as well. So honestly, Joker looking like he's in the pound seat at the moment for a very good position.
Yeah, and like you say, you know, the hard's not, you know, not slowing him down too much in that 458. So, you know, Joker potentially, you know, on for a really good result here, and I'm sure, you know, he'll be thankful that he went on the slightly harder compound of tyre, which has brought him that little bit longer into the race compared to some of the other drivers. But yeah, obviously we've got Max Velocity trying to keep him honest at the minute in P3, but like you say, obviously out of the two drivers, we think, well, believe that Max Velocity will be in before Joker. But I'm sure, you know, Max Velocity will make Joker work for that P2, as we see Max Velocity get a little bit closer to Joker in that section there. But yeah, no, I've got to say, you know, the hards sometimes, and especially around a track like this, are you know, they struggle for grip a little bit, but I'm sure, you know, Joker, the more the laps that he does on it, the more comfortable. And like you say, when it goes through that kind of graining process, he's getting more and more comfortable as the laps go on, compared to the other drivers where their tyre wear is kind of disappearing. So yeah, very impressive from Joker there. Obviously in P1 we've still got Pedro storming away at the minute. But we've got a closing Midnight. Obviously Midnight pitting for the soft set of tyres, already kind of half worn. So quite an aggressive strategy, and we all know that Midnight will have to come in again when those tyres eventually do wear off. But at the minute, you know, trying to chase the McLaren of Max Velocity and potentially, you know, the 458 of Joker.
Well, you have in those four, you have hard tyres, medium tyres, soft tyres, so three very different strategies playing out right there. as we see Pedro come in as well.
Yeah, Pedro coming in, which will promote Joker into P1. So, like say, sometimes going on that slightly different tyre to compare to the rest of the grid does put you in a good position. He's just got to kind of stay there and try and be consistent, which he already has done. But yeah, obviously, with that, it's going to be very tight between Katie the Kai and Pedro. Who's going to come out first? I believe Katie the Kai, well, set in a purple lap. Katie the Kai does get in front of Pedro with that pit stop. So, like I say, made the undercut work.
Yeah, absolutely. Kai now has just under 75% of fuel. Pedro just taking a 3/4 tank as well. So, very close between them. But Pedro now has 2 or 3 laps of fresher tyres on Kai. Kai obviously setting faster sectors everywhere. But obviously, Kai and Pedro yet to go for 2 different compounds. So, it's still open.
Yeah, it's definitely open, and that's what kind of makes it just that little bit more interesting. It's too early to call, the top 3 at the minute, because, like you say, the top 4 especially are on very, very different strategies. So I'm eager to see how it plays out. But obviously, we've got that max velocity closing in on Joker. We've got a little bit of a battle again with Rippensterin and Haslett. Rippensterin closing in on Haslett in that Porsche 911, and it seems that the Porsche around this track it's been a little bit difficult for tyre wear. Obviously, you see that front left, it's already kind of half worn. He's only recently just come into the pit, so it seems that the Porsche is really struggling around Autopolis today.
I think those tyres are only 4, maybe 5 laps old. So yeah, Rippensterin sensing a little bit of blood or easy prey, and he's thinking about going for the pass. But the one thing we can say about these two is they are good, close racers. So I'm not expecting any fireworks when it comes to a pass, but obviously Rippensterin is going to be wanting through. Haslett is just going to want to be holding him up as long as possible, because again, long term, what Haslett wants to do is maximise his own race and then hold up anyone behind him, so they have less chance to get away from him. But I think it's a matter of time. That front left looked like it's about to cry and give up, if you ask me.
Yeah, and obviously we can see that on the point of view of Rippensterin. Obviously, it looks like Haslett is struggling to clip those apexes with that tyre wear, but it's he's keeping Haslett. Rippensterin is keeping Haslett, on his toes. He's right behind him on the pit straight. Will we see a move done before the corner? Looks like Rippensterin tucking in behind Haslett. As I say that, he tucks it, he puts his head out, goes to that outside line. Obviously, Haslett will have the inside line here, so Rippensterin braking just a little bit later than Haslett, but doesn't quite get the move.
He ran
done.
the outside. No.
Yeah, he gets the move done, but I was fearing, I had to hold my breath there. I thought he was going to go into the sand. I was a bit scared for Rippensterin there, but no, he does get the move done on the outside. A very brave move. I don't know if I would have been brave enough to do that myself, with that sand very close to the exit of that corner.
Well, that was good. A lot of trust in Haslett was placed by Rippensterin there not to wipe him out on the exit, and both drivers making it round with a good show of sporting behaviour. So, but Rippensterin, so far, passed the day as far as I'm concerned. That was brilliant. Yeah,
that was really brilliant. It made me speechless for a few seconds there. Like I say, I was fearing that he was going to go into the sand, but no, a very clean pass by Rippensterin there, and like you say, a lot of respect between the two, and Haslett giving him plenty of space and making sure not to run him wide. As we see Midnight already back into the pits, and I'm sure eager to take on a little bit more fuel and change his tyres. But we see max velocity as well. That tyre wear on the front tyres does look, that he'll need to come in pit in the next couple of laps, but he's still closing in on Joker. But Joker, obviously having that tyre advantage over max velocity, he'll be kind of I'm sure Joker, no pun intended, will be smiling ear to ear.
Well, I do think, pun intended on this one, Joker is playing a bit of a joker on the strategy. It looks like on the one track that we thought was going to be impossible to try a one stop, next lap will be halfway through the race on hard tyres. He's got plenty of fuel to go a bit longer, so I'm expecting him to go to lap perhaps even 19 or 20 on this set of fuel, much longer than anyone else, and potentially going for a one stop with max velocity. Looks like he might be going counter strategy. Perhaps he might go to lap 18 and then go hard tyres after this. So both drivers on potential one-stop, pulling a rabbit out of the hat on this one. I'll dispense with the magic metaphors after this, but it does look like they're playing a little bit of an Alakazam on everyone else. I had to do one more.
Yeah, no, I like the puns, but yeah, no, it looks like, you know, sometimes the aggressive kind of strategies do work, but it looks like, you know, Joker and Max Velocity have seen a little bit of a gap in strategy, you know, aiming to go for that one stop, and hopefully it works out for them as we see the fuel light of Max Velocity come in on that McLaren. So we are going to see Max Velocity coming into the pits.
Makes it in, turns it nicely, just about clips the inner barrier, but gets away with it. So he's made it halfway, so I'm expecting maybe hard tyres and go to the end. But it's going to be a bit more of a challenge for Max, I feel. Just a sheer fact he's been a bit heavier on fuel, but Joker pulling it, you know, an absolutely brilliant drive. I nearly said magical drive, but I stopped myself.
Well, we'll leave that to the end. We'll determine if it was a magical drive or not. But so far, yeah, no, I've got to agree with you. It's a stellar drive from Joker, and yeah, managing to make that strategy work. It's not a strategy that we see often, especially around a track like this, because it is quite long when you think about the lap times. You know, 1:48 to 2 minutes, sometimes even longer when you've got a pit stop. So it's not the shortest of tracks. So to make a one-stop work is very impressive.
Well, Max took on a full set of fuel, and he has gone to hard tyres, so one-stop strategy on the cards. And then unseen by myself, and I think yourself as well, perhaps everyone, that looks like LBR Lewis is doing exactly the same. So, although he's gone for oh no, he has gone for hard tyres. So we've got 3 drivers on the one stop, as Koulios nips up the inside of LBR Lewis into turn 1, taking 7th. Obviously, Koulios will have to stop again, but he's going to have to rely on blinding speed to get in front of any of these drivers and pit again.
I wonder if that's I've seen, you know, Max Velocity and the other McLaren go for this one-stop strategy. Maybe I can make it work as well, you know, potentially a last-minute change of strategy for some of the drivers, you know, looking at their competitors, making the strategy work. But yeah, I've got to say, you know, like I said, it's not a strategy that we see very often. So any driver that's willing to have a go is quite impressive, and hopefully towards the end of the race it will play into a little bit of their favour. But
I wonder how many of the drivers are communicating before the race or what their strategy might be, and then working it out between them.
It's that thing. Do you want to reveal your secrets there, or do you want to kind of keep your rivals guessing? I think it'd be interesting to see, you know, if the I wonder if there's like a proximity chat, you know, when the drivers are going around thinking, I've just seen this driver go for a one-stop, should I go for it too? That'd be quite interesting to see, you know, a little proximity chat between the drivers. But yeah, no, very, very kind of unique strategy, and I think this track is, you know, helping them make that one-stop strategy work. Other tracks, you know, like Brands Hatch, or kind of the more kind of outrageous tracks where it's very twisty-turny and the elevation changes, we don't see that one-stop strategy work. So it's good to see it, and hopefully, like I say, some of the drivers that have recently come into the pits towards the end, you know, the likes of a few of the drivers around them, they're going to have to pit again. That's going to play in some of the drivers' mind, you know, that they're going to get some free positions, hopefully. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this second half of the race goes. But currently, we've still got Joker in P1 on those hard tyres. It does look like he'll need to come in the next few laps for fuel. But yeah, you know, keeping the guys honest. You know, Katie the Kai hasn't, you know, closed up on him yet. He can just about see him on track from his point of view. But you know, considering that Katie the Kai's on the mediums and Joker's on the hard, it's the pace of Joker in that Ferrari is blisteringly fast.
Yeah,
as you see him come in.
Yeah, well, all things considered, I think Joker's done a stint of the season almost in there, and that was absolutely outstanding. I mean, he's got to lap 20, and other drivers who are now, you know, have refueled and had extra tyres, are already halfway down on their tyres. So, outstanding drive there from Joker as you see him now refueling. So, absolutely brilliant. But we do see a big difference in strategies. You see aggressive 3 or 4 stoppers, a 1 stopper, a 2 stopper, and at the moment I'm finding it impossible to figure out who is going to finish ahead of whom at this point.
Yeah, even obviously 20 laps in, it's still too early to call. You know, where these top kind of 3 drivers or the podium drivers, who they're going to be. Obviously, Katie Lekai, Pedro, and Midnight have put themselves in a good position, but you can't write off, the likes of Joker, who've made that one-stop strategy work. And obviously, after pitting as well, he's only come out in P4, so he's put himself in a really good position here.
I completely agree, and as we know, he's going to go into the end, so all the drivers in front and or around him are going to have to make sure to use him as a marker to try and stay in front or get past. So as you see Ripon to Taron, who is going to be wanting to get past Joker, is going to be suffering with older tyres. But I think it's worth saying that this track, we visited here in Season 1, and it was one of those tracks that nobody wanted to race, but it always seems to throw up really interesting strategies and on-track moments. It is one of those tracks, for whatever reason, it isn't liked, but it always seems to give good racing. So I think we're seeing that again.
I couldn't agree more. If we've had people that have joined us from Season 1, you'll remember kind of that last lap battle between, Jason or Jabril and Swizzy, and that always sticks in my mind when we're racing around here. It always seems to be, the last couple of laps is when it really spices the race up. So I'm interested to see if that happens again here. But yeah, it's one of those tracks that I think, before we get to the race, drivers are quite nervous to race it. Once they kind of get going, they've made their stints work, you then see kind of the drivers, be a little bit more happy about us racing around here. But I mean, so far, 20 laps in, and what a race it's been already.
Yeah, as I said, we are over halfway now, and I think there's a lot to come. All the drivers have spread out a little bit, but like you said, in Season 1 with Jabril and Swizzy, it didn't come to fruition until the final half a lap, and we ended up with one of our best race finishes on our entire catalogue. So there's a lot still to come, but I am definitely keeping an eye on the top 2, because Pedro, his pace, not super consistent, is consistent enough to be just a little bit faster than Kai most, if not every lap. So he is making a dent on Kai in that Corvette, whose tyres are now starting to run a bit better.
Yeah, literally, as you said that, my mind went in completely the same direction. Comparing the 2 tyre wears between Pedro and Katie Lekai, it looks like Pedro is in the better position out of the 2. He's looking after those tyres, and it might be, the Corvette, it might be, the aggressive driving style. I'm not sure, but it looks like Pedro at the moment has got the more tyre wear out of the 2, which will help towards the end for grip as well.
As we see Pedro ducking into the slipstream of that Sarah Hawkey McLaren in front of us, using every little bit of aid that you can get from any driver all over the track, nipping down the inside and scooting off again. So as we can see, it's going to be tight, I think, between Kai and Pedro at the end. And I have to say, Pedro has had conversations with our Season 1 champion Swizzy, who has given him a little bit of help with regarding, as we see a spin in the middle sector. It's from Simon, unfortunately, but we had Swizzy given Pedro a few tips and hints on how to manage his tyre wear, particularly for those on a controller, and it seems to have paid back no end, as he's definitely seen an upward trend in Season 3 so far.
Yeah, I used to remember Pedro saying about and Swizzy as well, the tyre wear on controller, it's that little bit harder to kind of preserve. So, any little kind of tips and tricks that they can learn definitely puts them in a better position fighting for, these top 3, especially in this race, the top 3 positions. But, yeah, I think sometimes it's down to the car as well, not just kind of the control method. We've kind of seen that Corvette be quite a gas guzzler in some of the other races, and unfortunately it does burn through quite a lot of rubber. But towards the end of the race, I think it is going to be difficult for Katie Lekai. We'll have to defend a little bit from Pedro. I mean, like you say, going back to Pedro and Swizzy, I think they've definitely kind of helped each other out and we've kind of seen them give each other kind of little tips and tricks, which is always nice to see, and it's kind of nice to see how supportive, the Nighthawk drivers as a whole are. But yeah, I'm sure Pedro will be very thankful for those tips right now. Comparing the tyre wear of Pedro and Katie the Kai, he's managing to hold on to them. We've still got obviously 13 laps to go. But when you compare Katie the Kai's tyre wear and Pedro's still got half of those tyres, where Katie the Kai's only unfortunately got about a quarter life in those front two tyres at the moment.
Well, speaking strategy-wise, I'm looking at the laps to go. Still have 13 or 12 and a half laps to go. Katie the Kai is soon going to have to be in the pits as he passes Koulios on the side of the track, which he's just pitted for fresh set tyres. That's not what he's going to have wanted. I was about to give him a big compliment on his improved consistency, but unfortunately, I think I inadvertently jinxed him a little bit on that one. But it will occasionally happen. But I'll finish my point with Kai. He still obviously has those 13, 14 laps to go. Sorry, and that's not gonna. He's not gonna be able to do that on a set of soft tyres. He's either, when his fuel runs out, gonna have to go for a set of hard tyres and be a little bit slower, but make sure he gets there. I don't see how he's going to be able to do this. I genuinely think at the moment Pedro's looking like he's in the pound seat. Just for the sheer fact, Kai he's lower up on fuel, he's got higher tyre wear, and he's not going to be able to go for those softs unless he just pulls a counter strategy and goes for hards.
It's like that thing, is it? Obviously, he has to use 2 compounds, but obviously only 12 laps to go. Is hard's the best option? It might be kind of a case of, do I risk it, on the softs, just for pure pace? But obviously it's going to be very tight towards the end with that tyre wear on that Corvette. But yeah, it's kind of, I'm trying to think, if I was in the shoes of Katie the Kai, what tyres would I go for? I've got to say probably softs, because although we've seen the mega stint of Joker, that was over a prolonged kind of 20 laps. So your 12 laps, it's not going to help Katie the Kai maintain that lead if he goes onto the hard tyres now.
It's going to be a tricky one. I distinctly remember him in season 1 in that GTR that he was driving back in that season, and he went to the soft tyres, ran out of tyres, and then had to do another stop for another set of soft tyres. He's kind of in the same position again. He's either got a double stop on softs or hards, and then just not stop. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But he's out in the lead, but that lead is coming down by 5, 6, 7 tenths a lap. So I think it's going to be building here, as we do see Pedro making inroads, and he's definitely. Do you know what? I'm not sure how to call this at the moment, but this difference in strategy, so a load of drivers, is really paying off for some. And I'm just going to go back to Joker for a moment, he's only got 12 laps left now, and his medium tyres still look pretty damn good.
Yeah, maybe he is the new tyre whisperer, is Joker, because those mediums look pretty good. Obviously, only 4 laps old, so we'd hoped that they look good. But it manages to, that would put him in maybe the best position to kind of fight for the podium towards the end. Obviously, because we know that he doesn't have to pit, where the top 3 are kind of in that tricky position. Fuel wise, they probably are going to have to pit, and obviously the likes of Katie the Kai tyre wear is going to be kind of detrimental, as well as Midnight. Still on the softs. Those front, or to be fair, the 3 out of the 4 tyres do look like they're about to kind of fall off, but he manages to hold P3 at the minute.
At least they're wearing evenly, that's all I can say.
Good to hear. We like consistency here. But going back to Joker, he's not too far behind Midnight, so obviously that kind of one-stop strategy might claim Joker a podium here, as we see Ripon Deterin also coming into the pits and getting some fuel, changing his tyres, and that will put him behind. It might even put him behind Saber Venom as he comes across the final corner now. Depends how much fuel Ripon Deterin is looking to take on. Might be a close one.
Yeah,
It looks like it's going to come out behind LB Lewis.
Yeah, I think Haslett's going to have to pit again as well. His tyres are not going to go to the end, nor is his fuel. So Haslett out of... unfortunately, it looks like the soft tyre run earlier on has limited him to what his strategy can do. So I think he's either going to have to go mediums again on a free stopper and hope that one stoppers don't get too far ahead of him.
Yeah, I think that's... I couldn't agree more. Like I said, I think that... I don't know, it's down to car, characteristics as well, but that Porsche, it looks like it's really struggled around this track. I'm not sure, obviously, because it's rear-wheel drive. We've got quite a few rear-wheel drive cars here, but it just seems, that balance of the Porsche around here on tyre wear and a little bit of fuel, it's just not been the... Oh, as we see a massive slide from Pedro there coming out of that corner. I'm sure Pedro would have been quite nervous at that point, trying to hold that Mercedes, but manages to do so. Yeah, very close. And I think if Tokyo Drift was playing, if he was aiming to drift around that corner, it would look pretty cool. But I'm sure he wasn't. But going back to Midnight, he's back into the pits, taking on a little bit more fuel, and just see what tyre he goes on. I'm assuming it's going to be another set of softs for 10 laps to go, but he might surprise us, as it looks like it's promoted Max Velocity into P4. So it's going to be a little bit of a kind of a hunt for Midnight to go back onto that podium with 10 laps to go, but I'm sure he can do it. Onto the mediums. See, Midnight's all about surprises. Goes onto the medium set of tyres for his final stint. So,
is that two compound rule, Sarah?
Yeah, two compound rule. I thought, potentially you might have gone on the mediums just that little bit earlier, but you're going to have all the grip in this final stint where some of the other drivers are not going to, or the tyres are going to fall off a cliff shortly. As we see Max Velocity, on the hards, going for the opposite strategy of Joker, but he's putting himself in a good position, as well as Joker. He's got onto the podium and got 10 laps to go, and like you said a few laps ago, those mediums, they do look pretty good at the minute. Probably the best of the bunch. Oh. As we see Katie Lukai coming in.
Yeah, we've got the Super Saiyan himself coming into the pits. Pedro takes the lead again, but I don't know, 9 laps? That's going to be... Is he going to go for softs? Is he going to risk it?
Oh.
And as we look out front, we've got Pedro can go another lap or two. Depends on how... Well, I don't know how long Pedro's going to go. It's definitely going to open up the race. He's going to have fresher tyres towards the end, but it's all down to what compound Kai picks. Is he going to go conservative with a hard tyre to satisfy the 2 compound rule, or is he going to go softs? It's gone softs.
It's gone softs. Like I said, if I put myself in Katie Lucai's shoes with obviously 9 laps to go, I would have probably done the same. Although he's going to have to look after them in the final few laps to put himself in the best position to be able to defend or be able to fight for those positions, he's going to have to go on that softer compound of tyres. If it was any longer, I reckon we would have seen potentially the hards, like you said. But yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I'm eager and I'm excited to see what Katie Lucai does here.
One thing I've noticed is that Joker, despite going to 20 laps into the race to take his final pit stop, he didn't take a full tank of fuel. So I wonder if he is playing the I'm going to spend as little time as possible in the pits race and then just short shift and run the engine in a lower fuel mode. As we do see behind, I see Kai and unfortunately Saroki having a little bit of a moment in the hairpin. But I wonder if Kai is just playing the take it easy on the tyres method by carrying less fuel, which lowers your tyre wear, which will obviously make you a bit slower with the lower fuel map. But that said, it seems to be working for him, but I think he's going to be on reserve fuel by the time he gets across the line, because he's still got 9 laps to go and just over a quarter of a tank. That seems like a very low amount when you look at Kai, who has over half a tank, so double the amount of fuel. And as you said, Sarah, the Corvette itself does drink itself through fuel, but not in a ratio 2 to 1. But I think we will see Kai get past Joker. I don't think that's going to be too much of a stretch, old mediums versus fresh softs. But I'm a little bit worried for Joker on that fuel when it comes to the end, unless he's planning another short little stint in a couple of laps' time.
Yeah, potentially a splash and dash, you know, and maybe trying to go for the fastest lap. But yeah, interesting that he didn't take on a little bit more fuel. As we see Pedro with the fuel warning as well, so he'll be coming in the next lap or so. But yeah, I'm surprised as well with Joker. Obviously, he made that one stop strategy work. Potentially, maybe he burnt through more fuel than what he was expecting, or like you say, he just wanted to spend as little time as he could in the pits, which obviously has then meant that he's going to be on the kind of the short shift and the lower fuel towards the end of the race. So he's definitely going to have to look after it. But yeah, we might see him. We might see him. I was just looking at my my performance there.
Yeah, I know what you were giggling at there.
That's because
you were lucky because we didn't catch your
what happened there.
Your donk into the pit wall there, but
yeah,
we'll move on.
That's
from that.
why I was laughing. Sorry, yeah, I was trying to remain professional, but then I remembered that I actually did hit the pit wall a couple of times, which did result in my penalty. But yeah, going back to someone else, I don't want to talk about my crashing into the pit wall.
Your big whoopsie.
Pedro coming in, my big whoopsie. Yeah, Pedro coming in. Obviously, this is probably going to be kind of a splash and dash to try and keep in front of Katie the Kai. But I'm assuming, you know, he's going to go on the soft compounded tyres with obviously seven-ish laps to go. But yeah, obviously he's going to have slightly fresher tyres than Katie the Kai. As we've seen, the Corvette is going to struggle towards the end, so it's going to be close. It's going to be, you know, that last lap battle that we know fondly around here.
Yeah, and but, I will just point something out.
We don't know who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I will just point something out that I thought was quite amusing there. The way the livery on Pedro's car works, he's got the Portuguese flag over the fuel cap, and it just looked like the fuel refiller was refueling the emblem on the flag, and I thought that was if that was done on purpose, that was brilliantly well done. But I just had to state that very quickly. But like you said, it looks like we will be coming down to a last lap battle. But at the moment, Joker still out front and being rapidly chased down by Kai on those reasonably fresh softs.
Yes, and obviously, like you kind of alluded to a few laps ago, I'm kind of worried as well for Joker. Although obviously, you know, Katie the Kai and Pedro, they're on the faster tyres at the minute. They probably are going to get past Joker, because Joker's obviously making that one-stop strategy work, so he will naturally be going that little bit slower than the two drivers behind him. But, you know, that P3 might be under threat from the likes of kind of Midnight, maybe Max Velocity. But I think Midnight's in for a good shout, you know, because unless Joker looks after that fuel, he's going to have to drive quite reservedly for these final few laps.
I will say there is a very big gap between 4th and 5th. But I do think the likes of Joker and Max are going to be pushing their luck. Not on tyre wear, but definitely on the fuel, and definitely going to have to be fuel saving, as Kai does set the fastest lap of the race on lap 29 of 1 minute 46 flat. So great pace there from Kai. You do see off on turn 1, I think that's Simon. Yep, just rejoining at the appropriate time. That was close. That was close, but Simon getting it right and not rejoining unsafely.
Yeah, very good call from Simon then to just wait just that little bit longer, because I'm sure Joker would have been kind of fearing a little bit that he would have been caught out. But looking at Pedro, you know, Pedro's only a few corners away from the top two, so he's closing in at a rate of knots at the minute. And yeah, I'm sure Pedro is kind of, at this point, he'll be thinking, oh, Kai, I could win here.
Kai has made the move up into P1. No big surprise there. But yeah, we're going to be keeping an eye on his tyres for sure. I mean, he might even... Yeah, I think he might just about manage it. We did see the M6 with Louis, the Data Lord, early on in the first stint. Only last 5 laps on those soft tyres. But again, it is definitely worth repeating, and I will repeat this until I'm blue in the face. This is the first race on this set of physics, which is very challenging, particularly around this track. So, if anyone can do it, I have some faith in Kai that he can get to the end.
Yeah, I don't mean to go back to the whole Marmite reference, but it's that thing. Some drivers, I think, with the new physics, they've kind of adapted to them pretty quickly. But you've obviously got quite a few. Oh, Joker into the pits! Sorry to interrupt my own sentence, but Joker into the pits. So potentially may have underfueled or burnt through a little bit more fuel than what he was expecting.
That is a very odd strategy to go so long on one fuel tank and one set of tyres to then go only 11 laps. It's a very unique strategy. I personally would have evened it out a bit, but however, it has kind of worked for him. He's only got to do a little bit of a splash and dash and a change of tyres. So is he going to go softs? He's got to go soft, surely. No, he's stuck with mediums, knowing that 458 is very, very tricky on the rear tyres when it comes to wear. But it looks like Joker has pulled a fast one, pulled his Joker card, as it were, and he's come out in P4, only a corner behind Max Velocity. So that puts the pressure back on Max, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, 100%. You know, Joker now on fresher, faster tyres, so it's gonna be close between the two, but I'm sure Joker, maybe, you know, potentially he knows that 458 is in tune with it, and he knew that he just needed that little kind of edge on Max Velocity. So, yeah, surprise him, but I'm sure with 5 laps to go, he'll be able to close up on Max Velocity and potentially get the move done, and we might just see a kind of a battle of the ages between the two. But we also got Koulios on the back of Haslett as well. But I think Koulios, you know, it's been one of those races where he's had some pretty, you know, good moves and consistent for the majority of it. But obviously slight mistakes here and there, which have cost him a few positions. But I've got to give credit where credit's due. You know, Koulios, this isn't a track which I don't think he's driven too much of. So, you know, to be able to try and fight for positions after a few mistakes.
Definitely much improved from his first Nighthawk Racing event here with us. And
100%.
we'll just say, check out the video on that one. Just watch lap 1, corner 1.
Oh, yeah.
Driving into it sideways / backwards. So,
yeah, Koulios, you know, you're doing 110% more, you know, better and good performance than what you did last time. So
it was quite
hands
funny.
Up to you.
It
was very funny.
We look back on it fondly.
I'm sure some of the drivers don't, but we can, you know, after witnessing it, and I'm sure a few of us probably did get involved in it. But yeah, it was quite funny. But like I say, you know, coming here a second time, he's doing a lot better, and he's not making mistakes such as that, you know, going sideways into turn 1. He's only making the odd kind of few mistakes, which is like so easily done around here because the barriers are kind of offset. You've got the grass, then the barriers. So, you know, if you hit the grass, it's gonna unsettle the car. It's gonna potentially, you know, drag you off the racing line and into the gravel. So it's very easily done around here. So
here we
I
go.
don't think, you know, Koulios should be so hit up on the mistakes, and hopefully you can bring that good performance into Brands Hatch. But like you just said, we've got a little bit of a battle on our hands now. We've got Joker closing up on Max Velocity. I think we all knew, like we saw a few laps ago, this was going to happen, and I think, you know, Joker playing like you say, a really good race in the fact that he knew that he'd need a fresh set of tyres to try and fight and stick onto that podium. If you can get past Max Velocity in the next few corners or the start of the new lap, he should be able to create quite a big gap between himself and that McLaren, which will kind of settle the result.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of when rather than if with these two, because Joker's just looking significantly quicker. Max is lapping in the 1 minute 50s. Here goes Joker straight away, I feel. Max is going to fight him. He's forcing Joker to the outside, but Joker with much fresher tyres. Will he go for the cutback? Yes, he does. He's just got significantly more pace than Max. It makes it easy on the out of the corner. So yeah, Joker up to P3. Max still fighting him a little bit, but that is going to be a losing battle of old hard tyres versus fresh mediums. But yeah, Joker lapping in 1 minute 47s, Max lapping in 1 minute 50. So I don't think there was much that Max could have done on that one. But one thing Max is going to have to do, he's going to have to pick up the pace as well. He's just going to be vulnerable from behind as well again.
Yeah, as obviously just jumped on board with yourself, Midnight. You're only a few corners away from max velocity. So, like you say, obviously you're on the slightly fresher tyres than Max, or being on the hard. So, I think Max. Unfortunately, he had to let Joe Kuno through because, like you say, Joe's on a fresh set of tyres. He's got a lot more pace at the moment, and he's in tune with that Ferrari at the minute. But he's going to now be looking behind to see that Midnight is closing up on him.
Well,
So it's going to be tight between the two McLarens towards the end. Although we've only got 2 laps to go, so it's going to be close if Midnight wants to make a move on max velocity. But
well, I'm going to say now, very, very quickly to interrupt, it is 2 laps after this one, and Kai's tyres are looking a little bit shot with Pedro, only a corner behind, so that is definitely, well, we can see where that's going. And I can tell you from my perspective on this race, I was suspecting that Max was fuel saving, because I could see the time coming down a second and a half, 2 seconds a lap, so we'll see what happens there.
I'm interested to see what happens. But yeah, going back to Katie the Kai and Pedro. Pedro's not too far behind, so we're going to have to come up with something. I'm sure it's like the Autopolis last lap. I don't know.
Ooh, it's like a curse.
Magical or something. Yeah, like a curse. I don't want to use curse because sometimes, curse can think, oh, it's bad.
He who leads the most laps at Autopolis will never win. That kind of thing.
Kind of like Monza. This is our Monza. Like, whoever gets on pole
doesn't win.
It's gonna be doesn't win, or like it struggles towards the end. So yeah, this is our Monza. But yeah, it's going to be close between the two, and provides us with a last lap battle again.
Well, I will also state something right now. Koulias, who has just gone a lap down, is unlapping himself on Kai because Kai is struggling that much for his tyre wear. So
I was going to say,
fresh soft tyres versus
there.
dead soft tyres. Kai is not going to make this without that tyre running down to the canvas. You can bring in the tyres as softly as possible, but if there hasn't got the life in it, even with ultra instinct, as Kai will be very familiar with, he is going to struggle in the last 2 laps. 2 laps to go. Pedro, matter of seconds behind now, who is front left, is going down significantly too, so it's going to be very close between the two, but whoever's tyres hit the canvas first are going to be struggling the most.
Yeah, it's going to be close, and one that I'm sure we're gonna it's going to make our job that little bit harder to try and make sure that we capture all the action. But yeah, it's going to be a battle of who can look after their tyres in these last 2 laps, and who can burn through them just that little bit more. But obviously, different strategies. I think Katie the Kai, if I remember, pitted quite considerably sooner than Pedro, so Pedro might have that little advantage compared to Katie the Kai, but it's going to be close, and it's going to be very close for comfort between the two of the drivers.
Well, I will give Katie the Kai his absolute props. His front left tyre wear looks like it's on par with Pedro, despite being on an older set of tyres by 2 laps. So Kai doing an outstanding job on those tyres. Problem is his front right is significantly lower as well, so he's got to worry about not being able to turn right, but turn right and left. So it's the problems are starting to pile up for Kai as he comes in to the final sector for the penultimate time, and his front left has hit the canvas. He's going to significantly be slower now and struggle to turn right. You just watch him around this right-hander, and there's just no pace in there at all. Pedro's got a little bit of tyre life left, but it's going to hit the canvas around either this corner or turn 1. So his pace is going to drop off significantly too. Final lap, and looking at it, I don't think Pedro's got the... has he got enough time?
Oh.
It's going to be too close between these two. Kai he cannot turn right now. Pedro's going to have exactly the same problem into turn 1. Just about gets it a bit smoother, but this is where the problems are mounting up for both drivers.
It's going to be close. It's going to be close. I'm going to stay on board with Pedro, and I'm going to try and see. Katie the Kai looks like he's made a little bit of a mistake, and the gap between Pedro and himself have got very close. And as you can see, Katie the Kai struggling to turn right. Pedro just being able to turn that a little bit more right compared to Katie the Kite, and
They're both crawling.
Yeah, they're both crawling, but they're crawling fast. We can see Pedro, you know, he's able to turn in just a little bit more at the moment. Obviously, very similar tyre wear, but that front left is hurting both of them. But who is it going to hurt more as we go in towards the hairpin? The gap coming down and down, so it's going to be the last few corners that we're going to see this kind of whoever's going to come out on top.
Yeah, and then Kai, he's just struggling to slow the car down as well. Both drivers still making the apex. Kai running wide into the right-hander again. He's going to have dirty tyres as well now. Pedro is going to be on the back of him. He can still turn left much better than Kai because his front right is about gone as well. Pedro closing in. This is going to be a photo finish, Sarah.
It definitely is. As we see, you know, Pedro, he's still quite close, but has he got enough corners to try and make this move done? Katie the Kite going wide. Pedro looks like he's going to the outside. What is he going to do? A switchback? He's going to do the switchback. He's going to do the switchback. He goes to the inside. And he gets the move done. Oh my god, the last corner battle. Pedro manages to get him in front just a little bit and manages to claim the win.
Last corner, last lap curse of Autopolis stands. Pedro taking the win, Kai taking P2, Joker on a magnificent straight, she's taking P3, Max Velocity looks like he's going to P4.
He does, although Midnight is not too far behind. It's going to be close between these two McLaren drivers, but it does look like Max Velocity claims P4, Midnight P5, and then we join LB Lewis, who's just coming through that final sector.
Who has Rip and Deterran on his back as well. So
yeah,
these
like
places aren't sorted yet.
No place is secure just yet in these final few corners, but the last corner of Autopolis strikes again.
Yeah, it was, well, to be fair, last season 1, I think it was 2 corners to the end, so they're pushing the boat out on this one. But LBR Racing, Lewis looks like he's just about got enough speed to keep Rip Terran off his back. And with only minimal amount of fuel for the pair of them. 6th to 7th, Lewis and Rip and Deterran. Oh, another close one between those two. Hassel looks like he's got P8 sewn up, but he's had a difficult one with that tyre wear. But he has done very well. He's finishing on the lead lap, so he's going to be happy with the performance considering how difficult it was. So P8 for Haslett and Koulios P9. He's coming round the front. He's had a big off somewhere because he's got significant damage.
Yeah.
So he might have even been on for P8, but never mind. He'll be happy that he's made it to the end of the race. And Serogi finishing P10 as well. And we're just waiting for Simon finishing P11. Good race from him, and he gets to the end. That's what you need to do around here. But Pedro, on a hell of a final lap from him.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's a curse or if it's kind of a blessing in a way, but yeah, it strikes again. You know, Autopolis has brought us that last lap action. It was even too close to call on that last lap who was going to get out in front, because both were on very similar kind of tyre wear and had similar issues that they couldn't turn in 100% to the apex. So it just looked like, you know, Pedro had that little tiny bit of rubber left he could use, and manages to get in front of Katie the Kite. And I'm sure, you know, with his first feature race win, he's going to be very happy about that.
Yeah, he's been searching for that for 2 or 3 seasons. He obviously came very close at the Daytona Oval and Le Mans at the end of season 2. He has been wanting that for such a long time, and you've got to give him props on the strategy. Even with not the most perfect tyre wear, he gauged it beautifully, and he's just snuck one through on Katie the Kite on the final lap. So I think that the drive was exceptional, but the Autopolis last lap curse definitely stands for us. But at least at least it was a dry race, so we can say that it's definitely the characteristic of the track. You do not want to run out of tyres around Autopolis, as many of the drivers have figured out in our first ever purple lobby today. And all I can say is all drivers, I think they have done beautifully well just to manage to get around the track, and then some sublime good close racing between a lot of them, particularly that pass that we saw earlier on between Rip and Deterran and I think Haslett it was. And so much good driving and different strategies on show today, Sarah.
Yeah, and it's kind of kept us on our toes. You know, the one-stop strategy, we were debating whether it was going to work or not, and for some of the drivers it did. Obviously, I think Joker is going to be very happy indeed that he managed to make that one-stop strategy work and in his favour. Although unfortunately, obviously lower down the grid, some of the one-stop strategy didn't kind of work as as well as probably some of the drivers wanted. But it's interesting to see the different strategies. A few drivers, kind of like yourself, Midnight, going for that slightly more aggressive strategy. But yeah, all in all, it's made our job that little bit more interesting. Seeing when drivers are going to pit, what tyres they're going to come out on, and obviously debating as well. We didn't know if KD the Cry was going to, go for that soft tyre or go for a slightly, harder compound to make sure that he did get to the race. Maybe on hindsight, he probably thinks, why didn't I go for like a harder compound tyre? But with only kind of 8-9 laps to go, there was only one tyre in mind for KD the Cry, I think. But just goes to show that having minimal tyre wear around Autopolis tends to not be in the favour of whoever's in the lead. But it was good to see, and it was a good race all in all. And like you say, different strategies made for a interesting race, and I'm sure all in all the drivers are going to be very happy with how they're done.
Yep, and I couldn't agree more. But I think that just definitely brings us on to what will be the podium room in a moment. But first of all, from us, driver of the day.
Ooh, now that's tough. I have two in mind.
I'm suspecting they might be the same two from me. I'm just going to say it. Pedro and Joker?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes, we actually agree on something. But we don't worry, guys. We do agree on quite a few things. But
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, I've got to agree. That was my two in mind. It was Pedro for that last lap battle and manages to get in front of KD the Kai with the first. Well, to be fair, it was kind of tight between the two all race long, but especially that kind of final few laps, Pedro was storming through. But also Jokey, he made that one-stop strategy work and worked out. He was on the podium, P3, and obviously was the first on the hards. So maybe prompted a few of the drivers to change their strategies. I think definitely driver of the day worthy.
I would agree. I also want to give a massive shout out for Max Velocity on this one for his very unique one stop. He made it work despite being significantly slower towards the end, but he measured it beautifully. And the other one I want to give a shout out to is obviously our resident KD the Kai, who is one of our resident aliens. And if it wasn't for a little bit of tyre wear, I think he would have come away with a win. But I don't think he's going to be unhappy with a P2. But yeah, so close but yet so far. But I'd be happy to give it to either Joker or Pedro for the strategy calls on that one. It was just strong, consistent racing from the pair of them. Neither of them had to do any do or die overtake manoeuvres or defence. It was just managing themselves, managing the car all the way to the end beautifully.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And obviously, going back on what I just said, obviously Joker did go for that one-stop strategy, but right at the end he did kind of surprise us a little bit with that kind of pit stop for the mediums. But I think that was quite clever. He knew that he'd need that faster compound of tyre, fresher tyre, to kind of hold back and secure his P3. But yeah, very clever racing with all of the drivers, but especially the likes of Joker and Pedro, KD the Kai. To be fair, I think all the drivers did pretty well. It's obviously Purple Lobby. We've got quite a few drivers that haven't raced each other in a while, but there was a lot of respect across the grid. So all in all, I think it was a really good race.
I would agree, and I have to say, with the results from this race, it actually puts Pedro at the top of the standings following Autopolis. So you have to say his timing of the win has done him very well. So he's definitely looking strong for the championship in this series.
Yeah, and let's see how he does at the next race. But yeah, let's go in over and hear what some of the drivers had to say from the race.
So, round 6 at Autopolis. And what a round it has been, I think. I'm very happy with all the results I managed to get. Starting with the sprint race, getting a P2 and finishing very close to Kai. I think that was one of the best sprint races I've done ever since I started taking part in the championship. Um, I was definitely also quite lucky that I didn't get involved in a few incidents. But yeah, with maybe a little bit of luck going my way, maybe I could have challenged a bit more for the win, but Kai was a worthy winner. And yeah, I don't think I could have done much more there. Also very happy with my result in qualifying. I think I did pretty good lap on those on the mediums. Definitely couldn't have asked for a lot more. I think Louis and Kai were just much better, had much better pace. And in the feature, obviously it feels amazing to finally have had my first win, and it's kind of almost as if a weight was taken away from my shoulders, because obviously I've a few instances in the past where I could have won a race, maybe didn't make the most of those opportunities, and made things difficult for myself in those instances, but it feels amazing to finally be able to win a race. And yeah, hopefully many more to come. But obviously, just want to shout out Kai. He would have been a very worthy winner of the race more than maybe me. He was just quicker and more consistent throughout the entire race. But I think the key was the first stint that I managed to get. Like, I definitely wasn't expecting to be able to make the tires last for that long. And I think it made the difference in the end. But yeah, now I'm looking forward to Brands Hatch, one of my favorite tracks in the game. And yeah, just want to congratulate everyone. Obviously, we were in a bit of a different situation compared to normal. A little bit in a similar way as to what we had to do in season one. But yeah, looking forward to Brands Hatch, and I'll see you all soon.
Well, what can I say about this race? Well, this pair of races, it was a lot of fun. Autopolis. It's one of those tracks that not everyone always enjoys, but it definitely throws something up. And I've got to say, the sprint race was that for me. I think at one point I was 9th or 10th, and then a lap or two later, thanks to a couple of little bits of luck on my part, I was up to 4th or 3rd by the end. So, hey, what can I say? That was a lot of fun and a very unexpected result. And yeah, got to have a little bit of luck in the sprint every so often. But there, the feature races, some of you might have spotted, I took a little bit of a different strategy. I went for softs most of the way and mediums at the end. But I've got to say, I was absolutely outstanded with the pace of Max Velocity and Joker, who went for a 1 to 2 stop each. And they, towards the end, leapfrogged me. And I was sitting there wondering how that happened. So absolutely kudos to those guys. So absolutely great result for the sprint for myself today. But the feature could have been a little bit better. But you know, absolute kudos to Pedro out front, taking his maiden Nighthawk Racing feature race win, with Kai only just not holding on to the wind right at the end. So great performance from the pair of those dudes. And again, Joker and Max, well, they did brilliantly with their strategy. So hats off to those gents.
Next race in the Nighthawk Racing F1 RST Series, the United Kingdom's Brands Hatch.